Good afternoon and welcome everybody to this session today at the Research and Innovation Days 2022 on Deep Tech Talent. We're here in Brussels live at the Square and we'll hear today from guest speakers about deep tech talent and the celebration of bright young minds. Deep tech can be defined as technology that is based on cutting-edge science, which is characterized by the need to stay at the technological forefront through constant interaction with new ideas and experimental results. Now, in this session, we will hear more about deep tech talent development, how to foster and attract new talents, and how to foster and promote entrepreneurship. My name is Gareth O'Neill, and I am a Principal Consultant on Open Science at Technopolis Group. And I would first now like to give the floor to Signe Razzo, who is the Acting Director General for the European Commission Directorate on Research and Innovation. If you can please play the video.
Dear participants of Research and Innovation Days, I welcome you with great pleasure to this Deep Tech Talent Policy session. Human capital is a key resource of the 21st century. Economic, technological, social and demographic transformations are driving not one, but most futures of work. Innovative technologies and business models will reshape millions of jobs in Europe. Climate change and digitalization rapidly transform the way Europeans live, do business and work. Despite that, technology and innovation-friendly sectors seem to lack in attractiveness and inclusion, leading to significant shortages of skilled experts. For example, in 2017, 53% of EU businesses had difficulties in recruitment of ICT specialists to fulfill their vacancies, and this figure has increased up to 55% in 2019. Only 4% of EU graduates specialized in the field of ICT in 2020. Only 20% of currently employed ICT specialists in the EU are women, with noticeable divergence across member states. Structural changes in skills requirements are triggered by transformation. The diffusion of new technologies increases demand for digital skills, but also for complementary abstract thinking and social skills. The question is, could deep tech innovations, for example, in renewable energy and materials, play a role in addressing Europe's challenges? The link between R&I and business, especially innovative SMEs, startups and investors, needs to be improved by supporting sharing of knowledge and creating new opportunities to commercialize new technologies. To date, the Bologna and Lisbon processes have played a key role in improving European competitiveness in higher education, boosting cooperation and mobility. Proposals under the European Research Area, European Education Area, the Skills Agenda, the European Strategy for Universities and the Skills and Talent Package, alongside with EU programs, play already significant role in developing, attracting and retaining talent. A number of new activities are also foreseen under the new European Innovation Agenda, namely in order to develop deep tech talent in particular, such as the EIT Deep Tech Talent Initiative, which targets up to 1 million deep tech talents across member states in the coming years. Then, secondly, the Innovation Intern Scheme for researchers, students and graduates, to gain experience in EIC and EIT-supported innovative companies. Then the Women Entrepreneurship and Leadership Scheme to support early-stage women-led tech startups. And finally, the EU Talent Pool to facilitate mobility of skilled individuals towards and within Europe. However, we believe that much more can and should be done to enhance the diversity of workers and to boost recruitments in technology and innovation. By enabling the talent flow and intersectoral mobility throughout the European Union. In this session, we will discuss how to transform the way we think about work and values associated to creativity and entrepreneurship. We will ask, how do we build innovative capacity and skills of workers and entrepreneurs in companies and environments that are changing at an unprecedented speed? How can we ensure that innovation deep tech companies have access to the talent they need in order to grow and compete? How can we encourage women to embrace the tech entrepreneurship, to develop their leadership and fulfill their potential? And in the end of this session, we will also take a moment to celebrate bright young minds with the winning team of the EU Talent On competition. On behalf of the European Commission and Directorate of Research and Innovation, I wish you many insights and interesting exchanges of ideas around the future of work and deep tech talent.
Thank you, Signe, and I would like now to find out a little bit more about you, our audience, by opening up our first Slido poll on your professional background. This is a word cloud, so if you could just type in one word there, what is your own professional background? While you're filling that in, I would like to welcome our guest speakers to the floor. I'd like to welcome Andrea Renda, who is sitting here with me in the studio. I would also like to welcome Bernard Janou online, and also Maria Fatima Lucas online as well. So welcome to the three of you. We're looking forward to hearing from you in the session. If we can quickly go back to the Slido poll, let's see who we have in the audience. I see business, I see research and technology, I see EU, more business. We're starting to get filled in here. Academia researcher, it's good to see that the researchers are involved here as well, and possibly students. I see also some representatives from governments, so I'll let that go on the side. You can see that yourself on the right side of your screen. For now, I'd like to move directly to our first speaker, Andrea, so welcome. Andrea, you are a senior fellow at the Centre of European Policy Studies, the CEPS. You're a professor of digital policy at the European University Institute, the EUI, and you're chair of the work stream on the future of work at the Economic and Societal Impact of Research and Innovation, the SESIRI. What, in your opinion, makes a good job of the future, and how would you define the good job of the future?
Well, thank you very much, Gareth, and it's great to be back at the Research and Innovation Days. It's a big question, right? What are the good jobs? Where are the good jobs? Sometimes within this expert group that you have mentioned, the ESIR expert group, which is nested in the Directorate General for Research and Innovation, we make jokes and we say, okay, we are talking about fantastic jobs and where to find them, right? And the issue is very complicated, because what is a good job today is not necessarily a good job for the future, right? And I think there are at least two ways of looking at the quality of jobs that I think we need to take into account. The first is a dichotomy between static and dynamic visions of job quality, and the second is more of a micro versus macro dimension. So let me elaborate a little bit on that. The OECD, for example, measures job quality in a very static way. How much do I earn? How secure do I feel? And what is my overall working condition, right? It is also very important to understand, and this is more my perspective, but also the ESIR perspective, job quality in a dynamic way. How much am I empowered? How much is my talent being nurtured? How much will I be able to contribute in the future? Yeah. And the micro versus macro dimension is also important. You can look at the worker and the quality of the job in that context, but also how much does that job contribute to, for example, resilience and sustainability going forward. So is this a job that is functional to the EU's medium to long-term policy goals? That is quite important for us. And in the future, I think we need to reflect on this. We don't need very good jobs in bad sectors or non-sustainable sectors. We don't need bad jobs in otherwise climate-friendly sectors. We actually, and that's the double challenge we have, we need good jobs in good sectors.
And do you see any evidence or data or any mappings that would show that Europe is an attractive destination, perhaps especially in relation to the green and digital technologies or transition to these technologies?
Yeah, indeed, we do see quite a lot of evidence, and let me elaborate a bit on that. So first of all, the attractiveness of Europe as a place for research is beyond doubt, meaning the European cities, but also Europe as a whole, ranks very high in all the indicators of quality of life. Our values, our vocation towards research and the protection of human rights, sustainability, all this is part of a package that is potentially attractive for workers also outside Europe, and increasingly so. But if you look deeper in the data, you'll find also some surprises, right? Because typically we Europeans, and have been around for a while working on research and innovation, we've been complaining for a long time, Europe is lagging behind, Europe will never be innovative as the United States or China or other countries. Yeah. In reality, if we unpack this and look into the data, and my colleague Alexandros Ballinger in ESIR has done that and is doing this for us, there's a paper that will come out soon on this. It's quite surprising. You find that based on patent data, so of the past few years, Europe actually comes out as a leader, perhaps not on the digital side of the twin transition, but on the green side for sure. And indeed, there are some sectors such as wind energy or biofuels or sustainable transport, where Europe is indeed a global leader in innovation. So this is quite important, and it also tells us something about what kind of skills and what kind of jobs we will be able to create in the future. Now, it doesn't mean that this only in the green sector we will need to create jobs, but it means that if we manage to put together the right skills at the right time and migrate those skills towards the sectors where production will take place in Europe and where research and innovation will take place in Europe, we will advance enormously going forward. As a footnote, this also means that when we do transition pathways for industry, such as in the EU industrial policy, we have to embed jobs and skills into those alternative futures for the industry and pick those futures that are compatible with the creation and nurturing of talent inside of Europe. It's basically a message to put together the Pact for Skills and the industrial strategy.
So bringing these two together, basically. And I guess at the key of this is, of course, the workers, the researchers, the entrepreneurs themselves. So how do you see that we could build innovation capacity? How could we develop the skills of workers and entrepreneurs in companies and in environments where we see rapid changes and rapid developments, especially for deep tech?
Oh yeah, Gareth, you remember that ad that said, speed is nothing without control, yeah, right? Yeah. I think that is quite important, meaning simply the fact of being fast doesn't mean that you cannot control. If you have the right skills and the right attitude, you cannot control developments. I remember reading a book and also related academic literature on generalists. For example, famous book widely read, Range by David Epstein, that says, you know, the work of tomorrow requires transfer learning, meaning that you have those generalist knowledge that makes you more flexible in applying your skills across situations and ever-evolving contexts. Yeah. That is quite important because sometimes we talk about we need deep tech talent, we need specific types of talent. Well, we need not only deep tech and green tech talent, we also need education that from the early years and throughout the life of the workers really helps workers retain that, if you wish, versatile approach that only deep education can give you. And that is quite important, not necessarily only for those type of jobs that require a PhD, but all types of jobs. Now, that said, how do we go about it? I think we need to work on a future in which the work-life train and retrain balance is always under the spotlight, and we need to study much more deeply what kind of retraining is needed to keep the openness and flexibility of the human mind at the workplace. Yeah. That is important because human talent and human empowerment is at the center of everything here. And just as a final bottom line here, it is important to understand why we are doing this, right? We are not doing this to improve productivity in factories. Yep. We are doing this to transform industry into an engine of a future that is sustainable and resilient and prosperous. So the message is, on my end, is quite clear. There is no twin transition without good jobs and without many jobs that contribute to this. It wouldn't be a resilient and sustainable twin transition.
So in terms of the skills, you see this both from the perspective of higher education institutions, but also extending beyond that for career development outside of academia, and even linked more to lifelong learning. So all the way through learning, training, retraining.
All the way through. All the way through in a way that preserves the human ability, which is what makes us complementary and in many cases superior to machines, our ability to understand the purpose and the application of technology and really maximize productivity by using in the best possible way, but in a human-centric way, all the technology that today is available to us.
Thank you, Andrea. I'll come back to you,
Thank you,
shortly. Before I move on to our next speaker, I would like to have a look and open up the second Slido poll, which is on skills for the future job market. I think there's a selection out of 4 there, so I'll let you, the audience, fill in these skills. And I'd like to turn to our second speaker, who is online with us, Bernard Yanou. Welcome, Bernard. So, Bernard, you are a professor of design engineering, director of the Industrial Engineering Research Department, deputy director of research in charge of valorization, innovation and entrepreneurship, all of these at Centrale Supélec. And you are also Deputy Director of Economic Development and Entrepreneurship at the Engineering and Systems Sciences Graduate School at University Paris-Saclay. So the question for you, Bernard, is how can we ensure that innovative deep tech companies have access to the talent or talents they need in order to grow and compete?
Yeah, I'm going first to consider 2 different situations, large and startup companies. In case of deep tech startups, they attract more and more PhD who see them as more fulfilling places to work than large companies because their personal impact is immediate on the startup's results and the startup's values are more likely to correspond to them. And finally, they can also become partners. In this case, we must find solutions to open public laboratories to these startups and, if possible, encourage collaborations with researchers in these laboratories. We must also encourage or help these researchers and their PhD students to create or inspire new startups. This meeting between the 2 worlds must necessarily be organized and encouraged. This can be done through mix and match platforms where researchers meet with entrepreneurs who want to develop a deep tech, or through ideation days in the laboratories to bring out the innovative and entrepreneurial ideas, for instance. But such partnerships would guarantee a flow of talent for deep tech startups. In case of a large company, it's necessary to continue to encourage direct collaboration with university, to finance the thesis directly, and even to encourage the financing of a student's training program in exchange of regular internships in the company. But sometimes a doctoral student financed by a company is not offered in time a job and a career perspective that makes sense for him or her. Mm-hmm. When these companies have innovation labs, internal startup studios, or other open innovation tools, they attract more talent. This could be a way forward.
Thank you. And this new European strategy for universities, it features measures to turn higher education institutions into what we would call engines of regional innovation. How do you see the role of universities in these regional innovation ecosystems and deep tech valleys? And also, how could the university help matching skilled talents and startups and entrepreneurial endeavors and companies?
Yeah, universities are at the center of the system. They can indeed decide on the creation and orientations of technology transfer offices, or strengthen education on innovation and entrepreneurial processes. But they can also imagine the creation of transversal research institutes to provide spaces to launch applied research on innovations, such as research chairs and thematic incubators and accelerators. Then I see a role for universities that would be responsible for, first, driving innovation momentum in a series of selected technology verticals, and second, communicating broadly about these regional technology verticals to attract R&D and manufacturing industry in those verticals, around the university. Of course, this has been done for decades at a high level. In France, for instance, we can know that Toulouse is specialized in aeronautics and Paris region in the automotive industry, for instance. But now it's necessary to do it at a micro scale to create micro-technological valleys. And this must be the role of universities, as they are supposed to know the strengths of their research centers and of regional research institutions nearby. This regional innovation production can work only if academic researchers become more open to innovation processes, and if their traditional fears are answered, like, this is not my job, I have no time to waste, I have nothing to gain in terms of scientific recognition and encouragement from my scientific community and my institution, then these operational and motivational issues are crucial in practice, and probably new statuses of academic researchers can also be proposed to remove these barriers. Then at the national level, the ministries of higher education and research could propose a researcher innovator status instead of only the profiles of researcher and researcher educator than the classical professor. And similarly, when there is a framework for evaluating the quality of research in public laboratories, for instance, in France, this is done every 6 years, there are very few incentives in reality to declare innovation activities, such as patent filing, that have been linked to a contractual activity, or the creation or inspiration of the creation of startups. And we could also promote at the European level this status of applied researcher, innovator, and entrepreneur.
So would it be fair to say that it's not just then support that we would need for skills and training of our researchers, but also perhaps a reform and support of a new incentives and reward system for these researchers?
Yeah, definitely.
Clear. The valorization then of research and innovation relies on exclusively, extensively, importantly, on collaboration of many players in these ecosystems. How do you think we could improve this collaboration, and especially with regard to accelerating the green and digital transition?
Okay, let me again consider both cases, startups and large companies. Regarding startups, I'm not worried at all about the fact that they are massively engaged in accelerating the green and digital transition. This is what I observe on the ground at my university and engineering faculty. Deep tech innovations are 90%, if not 100%, focused on creating real societal and environmental benefits. For instance, in my engineering faculty, there are 3 verticals of accelerated startups, which are called ecosystem regenerations, including food, agriculture, biodiversity issue, decarbonation, clean tech, biotech, biomaterials. Another vertical, human odyssey, covering health, well-being, smart living, mobility, education, aging. And a third vertical, business revolution, covering new digital practices like AI, cybersecurity, Industry 4.0, etc. And we started recently co-innovating 2 years ago between the Faculty of Engineering and the Faculty of Food and Agricultural Sciences. And we had a series of very promising young companies that emerged recently and which attracted the attention of investment funds. And that this mix of skill profiles on a university is very, very promising in deep tech initiatives. I am less optimistic for large companies because they often are in a situation to preserve established markets, and often greenwashing prevails with a very nice CSR report that does not inform much about the real commitment of the company to the green and digital transition. Then the ambition of the research projects for these large companies may be sometimes weaker in relation to climate change, decline in biodiversity, problem of resilience of economic and healthcare systems, or relocation of production activities, or real implementation of circular economy. Then consequently, for the financing of Horizon Europe research and innovation programs, Europe could give more space to startups, which appear to be the sources of real innovation, while further strengthening the demand for proof of value on the actual creation of value at the end of the project for large companies.
Thank you, Bernard, and we'll return to you also shortly. I'd now like to return to the results of our second Slido poll. And I see what are the most important skills in the job market of the future, and critical thinking is way up there at the top at 54%. Then resiliency, 20%, digital and technical skills, 17%, and social skills, 9%. So there's a clear winner here in critical thinking, and then I guess resiliency and digital and technical skills. And I'd also hereby like to open the floor for the third Slido poll, and that's on how the European Union can help boost deep tech talent and entrepreneurship. So I will let you, our audience online, fill that in. And I'd like to now turn to our third speaker online, Maria Fatima Lucas. Maria, you have a PhD in computational chemistry with more than 20 years of experience in protein science. You're a co-founder and CEO of Zimful, which is a biotech company specializing in enzyme design and development through computer simulations, thereby with the aim of making industrial chemical processes more sustainable. And you're one of the winners of the European Union Prize for Women Innovators in 2020. So my question to you is, what type of skills and cooperation with universities and research and technology organizations would help to accelerate and make your business grow?
Thank you so much, Garrett, for the intro. I do think that I'm in a position where I have worked for many years as a researcher and now as CEO of a startup company, a deep tech startup company. I think I'm in a unique position to actually have seen both worlds and start to see where the gaps are. So one of the things that we can find easily in Europe, and Europe is a leader, are of course skills related with chemistry, biotechnology, biology. So Europe is very well set in that respect. But what we are seeing is that these scientists or these engineers also need business skills, which we're still not seeing today. So with the conversation before, one of the words that came up was reform. And I think that's the main word that I would like to keep for today as a message. I believe that the university system and the research centers really need to reform and rethink the way they're leading research today, because we know that currently the way we measure the evolution of a scientist during their PhD or postdoc is by the number of publications. Yep. But when we actually start working with a university, when we're developing something that's so novel, it's unlikely that we're going to publish it. And it will take time if it's patentable, or it might never even make it as a patent. It will simply go to the market. So I think that we also need to promote how we're evaluating our future scientists, because if we only look at the publications, this is a big limitation, because every time I talk with a university and I propose a project for a PhD, the first question is always, okay, so how are we're going to deal with publications, and how are we going to deal with the IP? There are too many limitations still today. We need to find a system in which, and I can think of, for example, compensation. If the company then, especially a startup company, if the company then makes it to the market with that innovation, then we maybe need to compensate the scientist, the inventor, and the university in which that person has been trained. But that doesn't exist still today. So for me, it's a question of rethinking how, because everything is changing so quickly. And I like very much the fact that critical thinking was actually the top skill. And I agree. Today, it's not like it used to be, where you would train, you would learn chemistry, and then you would spend the rest of your life doing chemistry. It's not like that today. Today, you need to have skills in chemistry and biology, but also in IT. You need to understand business, and you need to keep on training yourself throughout your life. It's not like you're done with high school, you're done with university, you finish your PhD, you're done with education. It's no longer like that. We need to promote this collaboration. And to be totally honest, I don't know how we're going to do this, but we definitely need to promote reform in our universities and research centers.
So reform of the skills and trainings development of our researchers, I guess, a reform of the career development support for our researchers, and a reform of, or perhaps new innovative, extensive incentives and rewards for researchers, taking all of these points into account?
Yes.
Clear. If we think about the global industry, in your opinion, what would it take for Europe to become a leader in the green transition?
Well, to be honest, I think Europe is already doing a good job. And in terms of biotech, we're definitely out there among the best in the world. I think we need to start thinking a little bit outside of the box. And I'm going to give you an example. For a startup company, it's relatively easy to find funding, for instance, to hire a researcher. But on the other hand, we're all talking about deep tech and digital, and pretty much every single business needs very high skilled professionals in IT areas. And there are, for instance, no mechanisms to hire IT today in startups. So we're competing with large corporations that have never-ending funds to capture the most talented professionals out there in IT, but a startup cannot compete with them. So we have funding to do R&D, we have funding to develop business, but there's actually not funding yet today to incorporate IT profiles in startup companies. So if I would have to think about one single action that would make a difference in terms of making sure that small companies can transition into, because as we've heard before, it's not going to be the big companies that are going to make this transition. It's going to be the startups. So startups need to be empowered to be able to have everything they need. And that goes from technology, it goes from know-how, it goes from access to universities, access to acceleration programs, but also access to IT skills, which are truly needed in high demand. And startups cannot compete with large corporations. So I'm trying not, to give just big ideas and try to say what we all know that is needed. I'm trying to really say, okay, there's this one thing that would make my life, for instance, much easier at the moment of hiring talent for our company that I simply can't compete with.
Thank you, Maria. I'll come back to you for one final point when we wrap up. What I'd like to do now is quickly look at the results of the third poll. And we see, how can the EU help to boost entrepreneurship and deep tech talent? 44% with EU programs in R&I and education schemes, and also 44% by fostering collaboration and training possibilities in deep tech companies. And then I see much lower down at 6% by improving the matchmaking between workers and employers, and through EU missions and prizes. So thanks to you, our audience, for filling in the polls. What I'd like to do now is close off this first session and ask our speakers for a very short 2-3 sentence summary on your take-home message for the audience. So, Andrea.
Well, Gareth, I pretty much agree with what the audience said about critical thinking, and I explained before why. And looking at and hearing what the other speakers have said, and this is something that I pretty much agree with, perhaps one thing on which that I would like to highlight is that we need to take, on top of the many things that have been said, we need to bring large companies outside of their comfort zone. And this is something that public policy has a clear responsibility for. And we cannot just wait for this to happen. But the level of stringency of our policies, the level of incentives that we give, have to be such that those that actually can be in the driver's seat for the transformation alongside startups actually do their part.
Thank you, Andrea. Bernard, a short summary from you.
Yeah, we have to build in Europe a continuum between the research and the research labs and the market, and between the researchers and the innovators and entrepreneurs. And for doing that, we must not make a mistake in imagining that any researcher should be educated in business, but in my opinion, maybe a small part of this researcher will be interested in all the facets of innovating, like markets, IP, and the leadership, etc., and finance. we must promote an hybrid status like researcher, innovator, entrepreneur. At the same time, we must also invent new roles of proxy close to the researchers for taking care of the researchers' finding and elaborating what can be imagined for useful application.
Thank you, Bernard. And Maria, if you could also keep this short and perhaps link it to women embracing tech entrepreneurship.
Definitely. So I would say don't be reactive. For researchers out there, talk with people, reach out to companies, reach out to startup companies, try to find what you're looking for, learn new skills, amplify your possibilities. And for women in particular, there are many programs that are out there because women in deep tech are still a minority. And there's, for instance, a very good program, which is called Women Leadership Program, which I have enrolled this year in the first session. And I really advise you, whether you're planning to work in a company or not, it's worth it because leadership is important, whatever you do, whether you're a researcher or whatever you're an entrepreneur. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. And I'd like to thank our guest speakers online and Andrea here in the audience, and we'll say goodbye to them. And now we have a special treat for you on the celebration of bright young minds. So, 2 weeks ago, the European Commission organised 2 contests for young talents in Leiden, the European City of Science in 2022. This included the 33rd edition of the European Union Contest for Young Scientists, better known as USIS, for students aged 14 to 20 years old. And this included the first ever edition of the European Union Talent On Pilot, which was an intense programme of 2.5 days for early career researchers. Let's hear more about these 2 contests.
Welcome everybody to the 33rd edition of the European Union Contest for Young Scientists. Each year this event brings together promising, talented young people. And this year there are 132 bright young minds. That's you.
We're looking at the future of science and technology, and we need youngsters to be taking on these roles.
Some of you will become the future leaders, so you have to solve all the problems we have created. And we are relying on you on that.
Europe definitely needs more scientists, engineers, researchers. That's one of the main reasons why we fund USIS at the European Commission.
Bonjour, Renda Belgique. Veniamo dall'Italia.
Wir kommen aus Deutschland.
Wir sind von Österreich.
Ahoj, já jsem z České republiky.
Я jsem z Latvijas. Я z Ukrajiny.
Vi är från Sverige.
They're so inspired and passionate about science. It is our role as organizers to share that with society.
Being one of the European young scientists feels really fun.
You need to experience that feeling.
Feels really good to meet other people.
To be part of this community, it's really exciting. You can start your network and meet incredible friends. In science, having different ideas, different point of views, it's fundamental. It gives me hope for the future.
Get your message out, let everybody know what you do, and have fun when you do it.
Welcome to the official kickoff of the EU Talent On. The hope of the future is sitting in front of me.
This is about transforming ideas into values.
The world needs your innovative solutions, and it's our job to sort of guide you through this process as efficiently as possible.
So the EU Talent On is all about activating bright young scientists and academics from various European countries to become the problem solvers and change makers of tomorrow.
put my talent on
mission cancer.
I put my talent on mission, climate neutral, and smart cities.
I put my talent on mission,
adaptation to climate change.
I put my talent on
mission, restore oceans and waters.
I put my talent on the mission,
soil deal for Europe.
For me, Talenton is inspiring.
It's innovative and brings people together.
It's a super stimulating experience.
And it's breathtaking.
It's bringing up best out of me.
Talenton is brilliant.
We need solutions to these 5 challenges, and we need real impact to happen.
Very much welcome to the public pitches and prizes event of EU Talenton.
I'm very happy that I see so brilliant young minds being with us today to bring their fantastic ideas.
We should all fight together as one fist and create a bright future for all of us.
This is the beginning of an innovation pathway for the 5 missions and beyond the 5 missions.
And I would now like to welcome 2 members of the winning team working on rooted soil fix, Martin Ballinger from the Max Planck Institute for Terrestrial Microbiology and Alexandros Tataridas from the Agricultural University in Athens. Martin, you created a very impactful project from scratch in only 2.5 days, which was quite impressive. Could you tell us a little bit more about the project and the winners of this EU Talenton contest?
Thanks. Yeah, it'd be great to see the slides now. Yeah, okay, so I'll just get going. So the Talenton was a 2.5-day experience where we had to come up with an idea to solve one of the issues that had been listed within these missions. And we had to work out the details and then present them to judges in this time. We did this in groups of 4, as you can see here. So you'll hear from myself and Alexandros today, but also Roberta and Jose were key members of the team, bringing us economic and biology experience. So next slide, please. So do you like concrete? Of course not, right? It's grey, it's depressing, it's grey, it's dark, and it's depressing. And what about when you see these green spaces like we saw in Leiden, where public space has been made available, hopeful, happy, calm. These are the kind of environments that we want our children to grow up in, places that are safe and green. We want our children to fall on grass, not on concrete. So why is it that so many of our cities are still covered in concrete? Because until now, we did not have the means as citizens to change this. Next slide, please. And that is why we have come up with the Rooted app, which will allow citizens to identify particular areas that they would like to regenerate, connect with each other, and then access and raise funds through the app to empower these citizens to restore urban soils and green their neighborhoods.
Thank you, Martin. And I'd like to switch to Alexandros and ask him, how does he think the EU and national actors could encourage you and support your team to embrace tech entrepreneurship, develop leadership skills, and fulfill your potential?
Well, actually, this is a very good question, and the biggest challenge for us from now on, the European Commission and its departments frequently organize events, seminars, and awareness-raising workshops on entrepreneurship, innovation, and technological developments, of course. So we will participate in as many as possible. Various European funding opportunities, such as Horizon projects, could also help us achieve our mission. And regarding leadership skills, we want to develop. These will be developed by all of us in the areas where each of us is an expert in order to get the best possible result for our team and achieve our goals. For this, we want the support of the Commission and national actors to bring us in contact with municipalities in cities that need to report their results, but also to adopt our platform as a tool where urban living clubs across Europe will come together.
So thank you, Martin. Thank you, Alexandros. And I'd like to thank all of you at home listening in and wish you a nice Research and Innovation Days 2022.